Hello, everyone. Welcome to the IPython Jupyter developer meeting for Tuesday, May 12th. It's a little bit smaller than usual as some folks are traveling to a conference, but we will carry on and see what we have on the agenda for the day. So,
First item on the agenda, limiting the amount of items on the agenda.
Yeah, I felt like some more, every meeting we start to have longer and longer discussion and chat about things that could perfectly be discussed by only the relevant person on an issue. So if we could try to stick only to what's necessary, that would be great to shorten the meeting to only 1 hour. Just a reminder.
yeah,
Go ahead, Brian.
I think as the project grows, we're going to have to think about how we manage a larger and larger effort, and I mean it's a tough. I mean, I agree that sometimes we do some bike shedding, but at the same time, a lot of times they're just really hard technical conversations that we have to have.
Yeah, but sometimes it's technical conversation for which 9 of the person who are in the meeting don't care about.
Yes, and that's the challenge I think we have to start to tackle is I think we're honestly going to have to figure out how to have more meetings but fewer people at the meetings. And I don't know. I don't know if we want to start to organize meetings around repositories or packages, or I don't know. I think this is, and part of the challenge is that as we hire more people, a significant number of new people, these meetings will become very difficult. I mean, by the fall, there could be as many as 10 new people full-time on the project. And so that presents a significant difficulty. It makes all of this worse, but I agree that it's something we need to think about. I think limiting discussion to 10 minutes per topic is a little too absolute. There's some topics that for us to solve are going to take hours and hours of conversation week after week. And
yeah, but then if a subject is more than 10 minutes, I guess it should get its own meeting with the people that are about it. And if a discussion starts to be longer than 10 minutes, then there is a lot of thoughts that can be done offline, not in front of everybody else.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. Yeah, that.
So I would make a soft limit at 10 minutes. Like if we go over 10 minutes, we ask like, hey guys, it's been 10 minutes. Can we either continue 5 minutes or just move to the next subject?
Yeah. No, I think we're going to have to do something like this.
And, yeah, and Min said like a 3-person cap for every meeting, and I was talking to him about it in Texas. Maybe that's a little too small, but definitely like a people cap.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think one challenge we're going to need to face is that yes, we will need to start to have smaller groups of people talking, but at the same time, I think we'll need ways of those smaller groups of people to report back to the project as a whole, and communicate with the project as a whole. And so I don't know what this looks like. It's we're running up into the often talked about phase transition and group dynamics that happen somewhere around 10 to 12 people. That if you get bigger than that, you all of a sudden everything that used to work no longer works. And I think part of what we're running into is that. And so, but I think we should run this by Fernando and Min but I overall agree that we've got to do something like having long discussions in these public meetings with only a few people involved it's just not helpful, I think.
Okay, so next item.
Yeah, it's a good thing that discussion didn't take longer than 10 minutes.
Yes.
It almost did.
Save the change. Allocate it to a different topic.
All right, how about the NB viewer domain topic?
Okay.
NB viewer domain, I think we already had the discussion, and we said that we would be redirecting everything to nbviewer.org, which was not the case. I think Kyle might already have done that by now.
No, we don't have access to the registrar.
Oh, yes, true.
It needs to be put on Cloudflare.
So is the idea that so I see there's two things we're voting on, and that is, do we redirect all of our NBViewer sites to nbviewer.org or nbviewer.jupyter.org?
Just doing all the nbviewer.org.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last week too, and the week before.
And I'm sorry, what was the vote?
nbviewer.org.
Okay. And I don't have a strong feeling. Any reason why that was the choice?
I don't remember.
Because it's shorter, because everybody knows it as nbviewer.
Well, the reason for me, at least, is that we can do subdomains and we can do a wildcard cert on the subdomains, whereas we couldn't do that with nbviewer.etc.org, because you'd have to do blah.nbviewer.IPython.org. I think you could buy a wildcard cert for the other ones, but I just didn't want to be touching like Jupyter's cert. It was more about like a declaration of concerns and to continue letting NBViewer be a Wild West.
Okay, that's
runs any JavaScript.
Gotcha. So I think. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. The only question is, what if we ever added authentication or something, and then wanted to start to integrate it back into Jupyter domain?
And maybe we run it on Jupyter again, but it's separate. I think the issue is that, as we look to these, this tends to be one area where you can't like abstract around it and think, oh, okay, well, what if later we want to have it? I think for the security pieces, if we want to be a little bit more fast and loose, and like if I think about this in terms of like the GitHub pieces, the parts where NBViewer is able to be more open is in the context with which there's no login user.
Yep.
Right? Because like, yeah, I don't know. Like, we don't have to worry about cross-site scripting issues, which totally happens. If anybody can put JavaScript on a page, then they can absolutely do any amount of cross-site scripting you want to be able to do if it's no.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Can we write this down in the hackpad?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't even have it open. Pull it up.
Okay. And then is the idea that it would be hosted on nbviewer.org, and that nbviewer.jupyter and .ipython would point to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so no one's links will break, but everything will point to nbviewer.org.
Yeah, we'll do redirects all to it. If we want to bring it back into the portfolio, the thing is, you can just think of it as being part of our overall portfolio, just that we have a separate domain.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah. I actually also just don't care whether it's on nbviewer.jupyter.org. I just want one.
Yes, I think that's the important.
And the last point was HTTPS. Like, it would be nice to enable HTTPS, but it will break a lot of notebooks that load resources through HTTP. But the thing is, if people load resources through HTTP on their notebook, it's a local problem.
Yeah, a local man in the middle ready to go for themselves.
So I don't know.
I think so because we are. If we're the area that people are going to use to run JavaScript, or they're going to share it with others, and we force them to adhere to particular best practices, then that has to carry out also into the notebook itself. So if they have to use HTTPS there, it should help people transition rather than basically allowing it all the time to do HTTP.
I guess we could inject a snippet in NB Viewer, which, when it's served over HTTP, show a header, a yellow header warning. This is HTTP, this is insecure. If you need to watch this notebook over HTTP, then it's probably unsafe to have it locally. To still have HTTP for all notebooks, but transitions everybody to HTTPS.
I guess so. So that's just a put that warning in. So basically, a deprecation notice.
Indefinite, yeah. Like,
yeah, and I mean you can do that from JavaScript. If you
pass a URL in the GIST field, it would redirect you to HTTPS. Everything except when user manually change HTTPS to HTTP, and then it shows a banner, which is warning. HTTP is insecure.
So the weird part about the banner is, like, eventually it's not going to be our choice. So let's say that we're doing the redirect from mbviewer.ipython.org to mbviewer.org. It's our choice at that point to make the link be HTTPS versus HTTP. Just as it's our choice whether or not we do the original redirect. Like, it's not typically a user that chooses the HTTPS. It's the link from there.
If someone share a link which is HTTP to NB Viewer, and someone click on it, it should show a banner that this is HTTP. But you might still need to be HTTP because some resources are HTTP on old notebooks. So we cannot just bring down HTTP, right? So we can see that later.
So I guess we have to see that come about, and then we can use it.
So what do you think the best approach on the redirection is?
I think we start out with HTTPS.
Okay, so no redirects.
No, you do the redirect. But when you do the redirect, like, basically, this is a cascade of events here. If we're going to do the redirect and say it's a permanent redirect, then we better make the permanent redirect be to HTTPS.
No, I'm sorry. I was talking about the HTTP to HTTPS redirect.
Right. So if they're originally at HTTP, we force upgrade them.
So the idea is that we would put everything on HTTPS.
Mm-hmm. And that's my opinion. I mean, like, that's the way that tempmb and try.jupyter.org operate. And the fact is, you cannot load on those systems JavaScript, which comes from HTTP. Like, yeah. Chrome will actively block it. It will say there's mixed contents. It'll load HTTP for images, but certainly not for JavaScript. And that's why I say, like, honestly, I think we have to make a hard stance and just let it be. Like, if it breaks things, like, that's actually what's supposed to happen. That's how HTTPS is supposed to be enforced.
Right.
I don't know how the redirects work, but is it practical to have it redirect from HTTP to HTTPS, but then have like a URL parameter or something like force HTTP equals true, so that if there is something which breaks with with HTTPS, we can kind of say, go to this, add this to the URL, and it will work for the time being. Kind of force people to actively say, I need this to be HTTP.
I really want http.nbeaver.org.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm just throwing it out there as an idea.
Let's just try everything HTTPS, and if we have too many complaints, make an HTTP only HTTP subdomain, which is painful, that's changed every week.
Yep, and then we just do temporary redirects right now.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that sounds good. I tried to take some notes, Kyle, if you could look over and make sure I've got everything accurate.
So Zeppelin real time?
Yes. So I was asked 2 weeks ago to look at how Zeppelin is doing real time. So they're using Angular, and they're basically just publishing events, and the events propagate back to the server and the front end. And they have something that's totally store the Angular state in the Java backend.
So someone has some really bad noise right now.
Seems that my biggest
Kest has just muted himself, and it seems to have stopped. So.
Okay.
So there is nothing particular on how they are doing real time. They don't have a language agnostic. They don't have an agnostic backend for real time. They use something which is close to what we want to do with data flow, where you update the data model and it triggers change in the UI. I honestly haven't written Java in 10 years. So
You're doing better than me.
Yeah, worse than me. I've never written Java.
So I'm not sure there is anything to learn or that we can reuse there.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Well, that was short and sweet.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Hey,
10 minutes to relax.
I just wanted to ask about this other real-time option. Is the focus still going to be on Phosphor and Drive for the meantime?
Yes, we will. We were just discussing on how we know that Zeppelin is doing real time, and we were just wondering how it was doing that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just checking in to make sure no one you didn't need any help with the Phosphor and Drive stuff.
I mean, right now I'm trying to get Drive working correctly with the master of IPython and the old version at the same time.
Oh, that stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Not super straightforward.
Okay, maybe we can have a meeting later this week to go through it.
Yeah, and it's mostly also because the repo keeps being renamed. Which is not for fun. But yeah.
But it's mostly on the IPython side, not the Drive stuff, from what I gather.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
It's basically you need to detect two things: whether you're installing on IPython 3 or IPython 4 at instant time, and also when you load the content manager, you need to detect whether you're being imported in an IPython 3 or an IPython 4 context.
Yeah.
Which is a slightly different logic, which is not always right, because you can run IPython, you can run Jupyter 4 notebook with IPython 3 kernel.
Oh.
And in that case, it's like, yeah.
Would it?
If that will actually be a supported thing.
Yeah.
Technically works at the moment, I guess. But
yeah, the problem is when you develop, if you ever, for just a minute, roll back your IPython to 3 point something to just try a bug, to check if it's the 3x version of the bug. Then it's just your installation is completely wrong, and you have to remove all your Jupyter Drive and manually clean things, which was really painful to develop anything. So I basically need the Jupyter Drive to, at least during the transition period, works on the two.
Okay.
Otherwise, I just need to always manually install and install everything, which is just crazy.
All right, cool. Thanks for the update.
So data collection, Google number 2.
All right. So this is our Big Brother ET Phone Home NSA thing. For people watching publicly on the internet, don't panic. This will all be opt-in. We will be transparent about what it is that we're doing. It will be anonymized, etc. So we've thought for a while about having a way to collect data from our users of some kind that would, report. So there's kind of two things that we've talked about. One is the stuff that John is working on with, like, actually tracking. Thank you, Matthias.
Don't panic.
With tracking, like, what people are interacting with in the interface, where people are clicking and things, on in a controlled environment where you have a group of people that you want to, a group of students or something that you want to look at what's going on as a specific interaction study. And the other one is the kind of broader but shallower data collection, something that we could put in the code and have running for a significant fraction of our users, those who've opted into it. And that would report things like, what IPython version are you using, / what Jupyter version are you using, what platform are you on, what Python version are you on, what browser do you use it with. And Nathaniel Smith came to us last week and said that it would be really nice to have something similar to this for projects like NumPy, so they can see, like, how quickly are people upgrading from one version to the next, and like what proportion of users are using deprecated features, so that they can have some informed idea about when it's safe to remove deprecated features. So I started thinking, and yesterday building a bit of architecture to do that, and just kind of trying to work out what the architecture looks like. So I have a kind of a piece of it, and I just wanted to discuss it here because, so that we can talk about the architecture before we get into the nitty-gritty of the implementation details, and before I spend too much time writing code and docs and tests and things for it. So my current thinking is that to make this readily available to all kernels, regardless of their language, we build it from the kernel's point of view on top of the technology we're already using. So there is a new socket that I'm calling Analytics socket, over which the kernel can send messages saying, like, NumPy version 1.9.1 is in use, scikit-learn version whatever is in use, this deprecated feature from NumPy was just called, and that kind of thing. And that is aggregated on the notebook server. So this would only happen when you're running kernels from the notebook server. So the notebook server would aggregate that data, and then every 4 weeks, every 28 days, it would upload that to a server somewhere. We would record it, and the raw data, I think, would probably be accessible only to us, and then we would make kind of aggregated things available publicly. So we would publish that for May 2015, X% of reporting users used some NumPy version in that month. And of that, this is the breakdown of versions that were used, and this is how many people use particular features and things like that.
Yeah. So are you thinking that this same approach could be used for actual interactive logging in the front end?
The main difference is in the front end you want much more data to see how people are interacting with it. Yeah. Basically here it would only be a Boolean flag, like this version has been used or not. So even if you can still report on a server or something like that, I'm not sure that's something we want to do globally. And also if you want to analyze front end data, you need to have much more per user unique identifier to get something significant.
Yes, in my current design there's no persistent identifier with users, so you just you get a submission and it's just a submission from the last month. Matthias actually suggested that if we want it to be hard to track users from month to month, then we should probably jitter the 28-day collection time, because otherwise you can identify, this person.
Yeah.
So exactly 28 days after that one.
Yeah. So I'm very, very interested, and I really appreciate you working on this. One thing I'll say though is that as part of this study that John and I have been setting up at Cal Poly, we've navigated the human subject review, and I think there's some fairly big questions about our ability to do this type of stuff. And some of the questions that we have run into is that because parts of so just a little bit of background. So some legal entities are not subject to doing human subject reviews. For example, most commercial companies don't do any sort of human subject review, hence why companies like Facebook and so on can do all the experiments they want on us. But because IPython and Jupyter are developed at universities, and we have grants from foundations that require human subject review, I think anything that we do in this area has to go through that process. And I have no idea how they will view something like this that's designed to collect data from everyone. Normally they would want a very, very tightly focused period of study, a very tightly focused population. And I don't know the answers, but I think we should probably talk to those offices at minimally at Cal Poly and Berkeley before we do too much technical work, because I think they may impose many more constraints than the technical constraints that we face.
Is your impression from going through the review process for the study you are doing, is your impression that those officers will work constructively with us, or will they be in university lawyer cover your ass mode and will just, if there's any uncertainty, say no, we shouldn't do anything?
My experience with the office at Cal Poly was fairly good. And I should say one thing that is interesting, and that is that if John and I wanted to do this study, so for everyone to know the context, I'm teaching a course right now, and our plan is to collect usability data, click level, mouse level usability data for the Jupyter Notebook front end as the student to use the software. And what our office at Cal Poly said was, because we're anonymizing the data, the the thing that triggered the review was the fact that we wanted to speak publicly about the data we collect. And they said, if you were to collect that data and just use it yourself and not show anyone else, no human subject review is required at all. And then I asked them, well, this is an open source project. Can we share the same data with collaborators at Berkeley? And they quickly said, whoa, 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 no. Like, you have to list on your application every researcher that will see this data. And if no one else in the world will ever see the data, there's a particular route in the decision tree that they go through that basically say, no further review is needed, you can do whatever you want, no.
This is very reassuring. So it's fine for a particular academic to know just about anything about you. It's just if they want to tell other people that they need to go through a review.
No, I mean, there's a whole set of other conditions that have to be met for this particular branch in the decision tree to be utilized. Obviously, you can't hurt individuals and not tell people about it. I mean, what? So I would love if we can figure out a way of running these types of studies at larger scales, and maybe it does mean that that we decide on a particular set of individuals that are going to see the source data, and that our offices agree to let us publish certain types of aggregate data publicly, or I don't know. It's a very, but I think we should probably start those conversations sooner rather than later.
So I have a hypothetical question. Let's say that someone else collected the data. So a commercial entity collected the data. Can they then share that with any number of universities for them to do research with that data that has already been collected? So Facebook has a collection of data.
It depends on the what the university is doing with that data. Like in the case of the big Facebook study that everyone was upset about, Facebook was the one who collected that data and then shared it with the university. And people were upset because then the university published research in a journal which required proper consent to be given for all stuff. And so it was because the university was using this data which wasn't collected under their standards and then published it was the problem.
So I think there are questions there. But for example, I think if a random company wanted to put up a website unaffiliated with Jupyter and collect data about Jupyter usage on that website, they have a lot more freedom than we have. If it's one of our official projects that in any way is affiliated with the universities and with our funding agencies, we're bound. Like we can't escape from these constraints.
Yeah, I think that's right. I have some experience with this being in psychology and having to deal with the IRB for psychology experiments. I do know that it is generally the constraints are less strict for things where you're just collecting data passively and not doing an experiment. So if you're actually intervening and saying okay, we have multiple conditions and we're going to manipulate this thing, then that's trickier than just saying we're going to collect this data passively. But there still are restrictions on that, of course, about whether the data is identifying or sensitive or could damage individuals, stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason the process that John and I went through was very, very simple, yeah. Although it does still require written consent.
Right, yeah.
And that, I think, is the key point, is could we find a way of collecting data such that we would not be required to get an actual piece of paper signed by every individual who wants to participate.
Oh, sorry, is my thing making noise?
Yeah, so I
a little bit of echo, maybe.
our lab has a IRB protocol for collecting data on mechanical Turk, which of course then doesn't require having a piece of paper. But we do have to give people an electronic consent form and we give them 2 buttons. One is I agree and to take part of the study, and one is like I decline, and then it just like takes them away.
Okay, I mean that it's possible that something like that would work then.
I mean, that's we would do that in the interface anyway for our own, just because we think that's an important thing to do.
The question is, can we implement the hooks in the software to do that without having to go through this process?
No, I think we can implement. Oops. I think we can implement the code. We just can't deploy it and do anything with it until we go through the process. My concern is that review process would enforce particular constraints on the implementation that we should know about in advance.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah. So I don't. I mean, I think it's fine to keep pushing in the direction for now. Maybe once summer hits, I can initiate a discussion, and we can loop Fernando, Jess. It would be great to have at least some of your involvement on this because you have experience with this at Berkeley, and get the 2 offices talking and see if there's a reasonable path forward.
And who would make the analytics? Like, could we ask more num-focus to collect? Or IPy, PSF?
You mean who would do what with the analytics?
Basically,
I think possibly the important question is we said that the rules about human subject review apply to academic contexts and not to companies. What about non-profit organizations like NumFocus?
It depends. So there's constraints both at the federal government level, but also from other funding agencies. So, for example, a lot of private foundations require human subject review for any project they fund. And so whether or not NumFocus is under those constraints would depend on their funding sources, and I would be surprised if it was not required of NumFocus. Like
could this be something we should run through Moore and Sloan Foundation? Ask their advice or what their thought of that is?
I mean, all the foundations we get funding from require human subject review done at our universities.
No, what I mean is that maybe they already had the case and they could guide us or already have an answer. But I doubt we are the first to have these questions.
I'm guessing. I mean, we can surely run it by them, but I'm guessing what they would say is that all we require is that your institution do this. The details of it are up to your institution. But I mean, we can totally ask them next time we see the folks at.
All right. So we will talk to Fernando about that when he's back.
Yeah.
I guess we'll probably see him on Thursday.
He's here tomorrow.
Oh, he's here at BIDS. I know he's coming back from San Diego today, but is he coming to BIDS tomorrow?
Yeah, I have to give him his car keys tomorrow.
Right.
So, on the technical content of the PR,
yeah,
I feel weird in calling it an analytics. Like it's not. It's more like it's generating metrics. It's not that it's actually any amount of analysis.
Sure, but we can bike shed over naming another day.
Yeah.
Words there.
Right, just like I can't change Google Analytics' name.
Right, but I think analytics is close enough for now that it's not worth spending too many cycles on. But I will say I like this idea.
I'm scared.
In terms of providing an API that will work across all the different kernels.
So anyway, regardless of sending things to a global server. I mean, I'm interested in having an analytic for me on my own. I'm interested in having data flowing from the kernel to the server and the server storing it locally. Right?
Yep.
So we can still discuss on that and how library could integrate with that. After the question of how to send that from the server to the cloud,
yes,
is a different question.
Thank you.
Fire it straight upwards to clouds.
Yeah.
If you're not in California, well, we're not having any rain for a few years.
Even if it takes us 2 years to sort that out, and we already have 2 years on user computer, nice. So yeah, we can still move on the subject. At least it's in between notebook server and kernel.
That's one thing. And if people are just collecting data about themselves, then there's no. I assume we don't need to do any review on that because it's not us collecting data. It's just us providing a way for the users to collect their own data, and then at some later point we could.
I want Paul to weigh in on this.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Part of the challenge, and this is where I think it's a very interesting discussion, is that let's say that we started to collect this data and our users started to participate, and over the course of a year or something, we would have this extremely interesting data set that we could put to use in useful ways on behalf of our users. And I would hope we could build this in a way that doesn't prohibit us from ourselves using that data or leveraging it in interesting ways to help our users.
So the weird part of saying whether or not we can run this data is I can put any amount of libraries in, which will override them opting in. Like I can force people to opt in, right? And that is a smarmy move there.
But I mean,
I'm just saying, like
if your code is running on their computer, you can upload data without going through this mechanism.
Right. So if I wanted to upload, yeah, right. So that goes through the same thing, and especially because there's no authenticated context, nothing tied to a particular user, even if anonymized. However well that would work, because I'm pretty sure that would leak out if there was any snippet of code whatsoever.
The thing is
show directories.
The reason why we want to do that, like each library can do that on their own, but we have the interface and we have a way to basically ask the user, and most of Python community wants to ask user when they want to collect data.
Yeah,
that's the main
make it easy for people to do it the right way.
Yes, absolutely.
We can't make it impossible for people to do it the wrong way. So why even try?
No. I'm just saying that it's certainly going to be impossible to prevent that.
Yeah.
Even if we said that we're doing the review, we're doing it. Well, not me at all, really, because I'm not in academia. But there's no guaranteed way for us to actually say that we're doing the human subject review appropriately within this context.
Well, and this is a very interesting question, because all we would be doing, in many cases, is providing the framework for other people to collect data.
Mm-hmm.
Not technically, all the data will be reported probably to us.
Well, but the problem is we're not the ones who pick what data gets collected by us. That may be a huge problem. Right? I mean, we may go through the human subject review and say everything will be anonymized, and then the NumPy data collection may actually send their usernames.
Yeah. But I mean, if it goes through our framework, we can be sure that there is no username in it.
Very easily.
I don't know about that.
I mean, we can check it against your we can check that you are not sending the literal string of your system username, but I mean, there's plenty of ways to disguise that enough that we wouldn't see it.
If there is only a list of features and NumPy versions, if you see
those features and versions are arbitrary strings.
If you see that the project has 10,000 features, it's probably not.
Sure, there's plenty of ways that we could, like, once we've got that data, we could say this data doesn't look right and throw some of it out. But I suspect that a lot of the human subject review will be about, like, what data are you collecting, not what data are you promising that you won't throw out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the big question here is, would all Python packages that want to use our framework be required to do human subject review? I think that's maybe a secondary question that.
If we don't publish the raw data and people can only ask us specific questions, like how many users are using these features, not give us a list of features that are used.
Yeah, one possible way of dealing with this is to constrain the type of information that can be sent with this API, rather than allowing arbitrary JSONable data structures to be sent to try to make it a smaller subset that could more easily be sort of monitored and
I mean, I think the trouble is that we either have to define it like a white list of, these are the allowed features. These are the features that NumPy has that can be reported, and I mean where that lives is even complicated, because there's kind of multiple levels of reporting, and you can bypass any of them up to, like, writing your own code to send data to our server.
In the first pass, anyway, we can start with only library name, library version, which is only three digits dot separated version. Or we can even match the version.
I feel like it's, like, whatever we do here, it will be possible to bypass it. So, is it worth even trying? Like,
well, so I vote that we invoke the 10-minute rule now. Even though this is really interesting and I think really important.
So let's continue on the PR.
What on the PR?
Let's continue discussing on the PR.
Yeah, no, but thanks so much for starting on this, Thomas. This is fantastic.
Great. All right. That's, I think, the end of the agenda, at least the agenda as it was.
All right. Well,
Kyle's added some evil laughter. Thank you, Kyle. All right. Thank you, everyone. This was relatively short and sweet today.
All right. Well, we will. I think we have a meeting next week, right?
I'm not here next week.
But I think Fernando and Min will be.
So we might have a meeting next week.
Assume for the moment that we have a meeting next week. We will put the word out if not.
Okay, sounds good. Well, bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Internet.